You can sleep less and wake up more rested. But not the way polyphasic sleep videos promise. Not by tricking nature. By stopping wasting the hours of sleep you already have. Most people sleep 7 or 8 hours and wake up feeling like they barely slept. The alarm goes off. Your head feels heavy. For 30 minutes you can barely think. Then coffee finally kicks you into gear. And technically, you hit the number. 7 hours. Right there. So what is wrong? Not the quantity. Not discipline. Not willpower. The way you slept. How much of that time went into actual recovery, and how much into useless awakenings, fragmented cycles, and an alarm that fired at the worst possible moment? Today, what science of the last 10 years says about how sleep actually works, and why sleep less and feel better is not a question of quantity. It is a question of quality and timing. First, the central myth that most everyday talk about sleep rests on. Every adult needs exactly 8 hours. That is not true. 8 is an average across a sample. The real range for a healthy adult is 6 to 9 hours. And that personal number is set biologically, not by choice. In 2015, the journal Current Biology published a study that rewired how scientists think about natural sleep. Researchers studied 3 hunter-gatherer communities: the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, the Tsimane in Bolivia. These are groups still living without electricity, without social media, without scheduled jobs. The exact conditions our brains spent millions of years evolving in. They tracked the sleep of 94 people across 1,165 full days. The average came out to 6 hours and 25 minutes. Not 8. Less than 6.5. They fall asleep about 3.5 hours after sunset and wake up about an hour before sunrise. And one important detail. The word insomnia does not exist in their languages. In the United States, 20% of adults report insomnia. In these groups, the phenomenon does not even have a name. The uncomfortable conclusion. A modern human sleeping 7 hours is not underslept by evolutionary standards. They sleep more than their ancestors did. Just badly. Since we are doing myths, let us hit the most popular myth about sleeping less. Polyphasic sleep. Especially the extreme version called Huberman. 6 20-minute naps a day. 2 hours of sleep total. The pitch is seductive. If sleep happens in cycles, and the most valuable phase is REM, maybe you can trick the brain into diving straight into the valuable phases. On social media, programmers and productivity influencers ran with this schedule, promising the brain would adapt after 2 weeks. In 2024, the journal Sleep published a study that closed the case. They took motivated volunteers, people who actually wanted to try the schedule and were committed to following it. 9 out of 10 dropped out in the first month. The single person who lasted 5 weeks showed progressive physiological damage. The headline finding was about growth hormone. In normal sleep, growth hormone is released mostly during deep sleep, in the first half of the night. This is the hormone responsible for tissue repair, immune function, cell regeneration. On the Huberman schedule, growth hormone release dropped by 95%. The body simply stopped repairing itself, and the deficit did not catch up over time. In parallel, the National Sleep Foundation Consensus Panel in 2021 published a statement saying directly, polyphasic schedules show no proven benefit over a normal night of sleep, and they are linked to consistent negative effects. Case closed. Fair question here. What about the stories of people who slept 4 or 5 hours their whole life and were extremely productive? Some of those stories are exaggeration. Some are confirmed fact. In 2009, researchers at the University of California, San Francisco found a mutation in a gene called December 2nd. People with this mutation sleep on average 6.25 hours per night. People without it sleep 8 hours and 1 minute. No negative consequences. No daytime drowsiness. No cognitive deficits. Later, more mutations of the same kind were found in the genes ADRB1, NPSR1, and GRM1. They are called natural short sleeper genes. Combined, carriers make up between 1 and 3% of the population. Not 10, not 20, 1 to 3. What this means? There is a biologically real class of people for whom 5 or 6 hours of sleep is the natural norm. But the chance you are one of them is about 2%. So when a successful person says, I sleep 4 hours, they fall into one of 3 categories. They are a carrier. They are sleep deprived and do not notice. Or they are bluffing. The third one happens more often than the first two combined. The point here is not to be discouraged. The point is to stop aiming at someone else's genetics. Your biological minimum is most likely 7 or 8 hours. That is not a weakness. That is the norm for 97% of the species. Now the central idea. If duration is set by biology, where is the leverage? The structure. Sleep is not a flat blackout. It is a sequence of cycles, each lasting on average 90 minutes, with a range of 70 to 110. A normal night runs through 4 to 6 full cycles. Inside each cycle, 2 big parts. Non-REM sleep splits into 3 stages: drowsiness, light sleep, and deep sleep. Deep sleep is the most valuable phase for the body. Physical recovery happens here. Growth hormone release. The brain clearing out metabolic waste. After deep sleep, the cycle moves into REM. REM is where memory, emotion, and learning are processed. Dreams happen in REM. Structure matters because the distribution of these phases across the night is uneven. Deep sleep is concentrated in the first half. REM is concentrated in the second. Which means if you go to bed at 3 in the morning and wake up at 8, you got 5 hours of total sleep, but you missed most of the REM-heavy second half. Your brain wakes up knowing the emotions were not processed, the memory was not consolidated. The practical consequence. Going to bed earlier is not the same as going to bed later. An hour of sleep from 11 to 12 does different work than an hour from 2 to 3. This insight by itself saves hours. Not because the hours are hidden somewhere. Because 1 hour of quality deep sleep does more than 2 hours of broken sleep at the wrong time. In 2024, the journal Sleep published one of the most surprising studies of recent years. A team from Australia and the United States used data from the UK Biobank, a large medical database where participants wear wrist accelerometers that track movement and sleep around the clock. The sample was almost 61,000 people. The analysis covered 10 million hours of sleep. They asked one question: what predicts mortality risk more accurately? How long you sleep, or how regularly you sleep? The answer was not what anyone expected. Regularity, stronger than duration. People who went to bed and woke up at the same time every day had a 20 to 48% lower mortality risk compared to people whose schedule drifted. And that was after controlling for sleep duration itself, age, smoking, and physical activity. What this means in practice. Sleeping 6 hours always between midnight and 6 is better than 7 hours that swings from 10 to 5 one day and 2 to 9 the next. Regularity gives your brain predictability. The circadian rhythm stops chasing itself. Hormones settle into a clean pattern. And subjectively, you sleep better and wake up easier because the brain knows when it is going to happen. The cheapest intervention you can run on yourself. No supplements. No devices. The same bedtime and the same wake time, every day, including weekends. A short practical block. Only what is backed by research, no esoterics. First, bedroom temperature. In 2020, a large study analyzed 3.5 million nights from 34,000 people. Each additional degree above 65 Fahrenheit reduced sleep efficiency. Translated, the optimal range is around 18 degrees Celsius. Not 20, not 22. 18. The reason is that the brain uses a drop in body temperature as the signal to start shutting down. If the room is warm, the body cannot cool, the signal does not arrive, and deep sleep gets shortened. Second, caffeine and its timer. The half-life of caffeine is 4 to 6 hours, which means a cup of coffee at 3 in the afternoon is still half active at 9 at night. An experiment with a 400 milligram dose showed that caffeine taken 6 hours before bed cut total sleep by about 1 hour. Not so much by making it harder to fall asleep, but by reducing deep sleep. So the rule for most people is simple. No caffeine after 2 p.m. The sensitive ones cut off at noon. Third, morning light. The most underrated lever. When the eyes get bright light in the first hours after waking, there is a sharp spike in cortisol, the wake-up hormone, up to 50% above baseline. This wave is not bad. It is the trigger that anchors the circadian rhythm for the day, and 14 to 16 hours later, the brain releases melatonin to put you to sleep. Morning light at 7 a.m. is the foundation for falling asleep at 11. Without that light, the brain does not know what time night is. Fourth, the flip side, blue light at night. Phone and laptop screens at full brightness do suppress melatonin, but not as catastrophically as it is sometimes claimed. The real cost is not the light. It is the stimulation that comes with the screens. Endless feeds, news, work messages. The body is physiologically getting ready for sleep, but the mind stays in daytime mode. That is the real reason falling asleep takes longer. Not blue light by itself. Fifth, and the most practical. The moment you wake up, there is a phenomenon called sleep inertia. If the alarm goes off during deep sleep, the transition into wakefulness takes 15 to 30 minutes, and you feel groggy. If it goes off at the end of a cycle, the transition is almost instant. So if you go to bed at 11, setting the alarm at 6:30 or 8 is better than 7. 90-minute multiples line up with the end of cycles. Not a guarantee, cycle length varies, but it lowers the chance of being yanked out of the deepest sleep. Logical question. If sleep is so valuable, why did evolution leave us vulnerable for 8 hours a day? It is a huge risk. You are lying down, motionless, not reacting, exposed to any predator that walks by. The answer? Evolution kept it because it could not be done any other way. The work sleep performs is cheaper to do in this format than in any alternative. In deep sleep, something happens that does not happen during waking under any circumstances. The brain switches on its cleaning system. The channels between neurons widen, cerebrospinal fluid flushes through brain tissue, and metabolic waste gets carried out, including beta amyloid, the protein whose buildup is linked to cognitive aging. This system runs only during sleep. So when people say, "I just need less sleep," they are not skipping rest. They are skipping cleaning. In REM sleep, the brain rewrites memory. The day's experience gets processed. Important information moves into long-term storage. Useless information gets cut. Emotional load eases off. That is why exams go better when you are well rested. Not because your head feels fresh, but because your brain literally consolidated what you studied that very night. Sleep was not left in the design as a tax on the day. It is active biological work. And the fact that evolution preserved a mechanism that leaves you defenseless for 8 hours is the strongest argument that this work has no alternative path. Bringing it together. 5 levers backed by data. 1. Fixed wake time. Every day, including weekends. The single most powerful intervention. Regularity beats duration. UK Biobank confirmed it. 2. Morning light in the first 30 minutes. 15 minutes outside or at a window. No sunglasses. In a dark winter, a daylight lamp works. This triggers the cortisol wave and starts the evening sleep timer. 3. Bedtime in a window of 7 to 8 hours before wake. Not when I get tired. Not after one more episode. A window. If you wake at 7, lights out between 11 and midnight. Later than that, you lose the first half of the night, where deep sleep lives. 4. 18 degrees Celsius and darkness. Cool plus dark. 2 of the strongest sleep signals the brain recognizes without training. 5. Caffeine cutoff at 2 p.m. Nicotine and alcohol are a separate topic, but in short, alcohol at night also damages deep sleep, even if it feels like you fall asleep faster. That is it. No polyphasic exotica. No moon tracking apps. 5 simple levers that work because they hit real biological mechanisms, not marketing. The most surprising part is that almost all of these findings are from the last 20 years. Before that, medicine treated sleep as a passive state. Now it is treated as active biological work that builds who we are. And every one of these levers, temperature, light, regularity, timing, is something you can change. No pills, no apps, no heroics. If this breakdown was useful, the channel has many more like it on productivity and performance, all based on research. Subscribe if you want more methods that actually work and are backed by data.